All right. Hey, everybody. What is up? I am here joined with PixelPerfectRuns, and we're just
Hello,
going to talk a
everyone.
little bit about the Marihour challenge, what that's like, some speedrun choking, and all that good stuff. So if you want to introduce yourself, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everybody. My name is PixelPerfectRuns. I am speedrunner and a Twitch streamer on Twitch. And like you said, I mainly focus on a challenge called the Super Mario Hour Challenge. It's a category it's different than a lot of other speedruns that you might be typical with. On this challenge, you have to complete 6 Mario games back to back. So in this challenge, it's Super Mario Bros. 1, Super Mario Bros. 2 Japan, Super Mario Bros. 2 USA, Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, and Super Mario 64. And you complete all those 6 games the goal is under an hour. Of course, you can complete it in any time you'd like, but the goal of the Super Mario Hour challenge is to complete all those games in under an hour.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And not
But
not many people have actually done that, right?
yeah, I think as of now, there's less than 10 runners who have successfully completed the challenge.
That's pretty cool, especially since Mario is so popular in
Hmm.
speedrunning, right? You would think like there'd be more people to do it, but it's actually pretty hard. I was doing some research on it, and it turns out you only have about like 8 minutes of wiggle room if you just took like every world record and put them next to each other. Which
Yeah.
to have that level of consistency across 6 different games, especially games like that are so so optimized, it makes it really
Definitely.
difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. It definitely is. I think something about it some people don't like is that Super Mario 64 is at the very end of the run, which we'll get into this a bit later. It's the hardest game in the challenge by far, because you have to do 1 star, which is completing the game with only 1 star, and to do that you have to do really really difficult strats.
Mhm.
Some of you may know them as BLJs, specifically SBLJ, which is it's just absurd to learn. For me, especially since I think I had literally no experience with that game at all. It took me over 70 hours to get consistent with it. So some people just aren't willing to put in the time, which is totally understandable. It's really really tough to do it, especially since it's at the very end of the game.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. It does. You have to do them in order, right? And so that means you have to do the
Yeah,
Sim 64 last, and that
yeah, that's
yeah, and you have to either do 0 star or 1 star, and
hmm
that's just like I didn't even think about that. Like, yeah, there's if you're not like super familiar with BLJs, then that's gonna be really difficult because
oh, it's awful.
yeah,
Yeah, I know a lot of runners. I'll name one particular, Super Mega Dev. He is also a runner of the Super Mario Hour Challenge. His PB was a 104.10 for the longest time, and in his PB, he messed up on SPLJ, I think for like 2 or 3 minutes. And
oh
you may be like,
man,
"Whoa, that's insane! 2 or 3 minutes. That's so much time." But in reality, it's just so hard to get. I'll quote Darbian on this. I think he said, "This is the hardest trick in the Super Mario Hour challenge. I can either get a first try or it can take me 15 minutes."
mm,
And it's crazy because it's so true. It's such a difficult trick to learn and
yeah,
master.
for sure. And a lot of people spend like their whole speedrunner career just focusing on like that 1 star or 0 star category, and like the
Yeah,
hardest part for a lot of them is like getting those BLJs super consistent, and then like
that definitely is true.
it's not a super long run or anything. So like if you're in a normal setting where you're just running like 1 star, it's like, oh, you messed up on some BLJs, like you reset. It's like a couple
Hmm.
minutes. When you're doing Super
Yeah.
Mario Art challenge, it's like you're like 50 minutes deep. It's like,
Yeah.
oh man, really got to hit this.
It's so especially it's really nerve-wracking later in the games. Something else I want to point out about the challenge is when you switch between the games, other than Super Mario Brothers 1 and Super Mario Brothers 2 Japan, all the games have slightly different physics. Sometimes Mario jumps a tiny bit higher. In one of the games, if you hold A the entire time, if you hold jump the entire time, you'll gain more height than if you just tap the button
Hmm.
lightly, which is different in each games. Or so it's really hard switching between the games and remembering like, okay, this is how you do this trick with the physics,
Hmm.
with the change of the jumping speed and whatever. It's really hard to adjust to that as well.
Yeah, and I imagine because it's like I do marathons every Friday where I run like a bunch of very different games. So I'll run like
Hmm.
Left 4 Dead and then Devil May Cry and back and forth. And that's not that difficult because like they're so different from each other. that I don't really have like a overlap, you know, like I don't get confused between them.
That's
But I imagine when
yeah.
you're doing like something like Marihour challenge, it's like, especially like the 2D ones, a lot of them, I bet the physics are like very similar, but they
Mm-hmm.
are different, and so it's probably really easy to just like mess those up and get like the wires crossed between those.
Yeah, definitely. I think like the first level, the first one or two levels are definitely just being like, okay, how do I play this game again? Because you kind of have to, you might have just been stuck in the first game, Super Mario Brothers 1, for like maybe 20 minutes.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden you're put into another game with completely different physics. So you have to remember, like, okay, this is how I do this trick. This is what happens if I hold the button for X amount of time.
Hmm.
And I think it's a smaller thing that a lot of people don't really think of because it's like, oh, okay, 6 different games. You got to memorize the routes, the tricks, but it's really the smaller things I think that are a lot harder to pull off in an hour long run.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like the game feel, you know, being comfortable with it and stuff. Speaking of
Yeah.
game feel, though, so what did you run before you did Mario Hour Challenge?
So I started in December of 2017 with Super Mario Odyssey. Um, that was the game. I played it casually, and I was like, "This game is really cool. I want to play it again." And then my brother was like, "Why don't you speedrun it?" I'm pretty sure he said that as like a joke,
Hmm.
because he's a speedrunner himself. But I was like, "Okay, sure." So I spent the next few months learning Super Mario Odyssey, and that was my first game. think I I think I played it for about a year and a half until I was like, "All right, this game was fun, but I need to move on to something else. I've been doing this for too long."
Hmm. Yeah, it's a long time to do one run. Definitely. I, I
Yeah,
I find that a lot of
definitely.
people when they just get into speedrunning, they usually like, all right, this is my game and this is what I'm gonna run, and then they do that for like quite a while, and then after that they kind of get burnt out and they either like stop or they pick like up another game. And I've noticed that like once someone picks up a second game, then it's like okay, then they're gonna pick up a third and then maybe a fourth, and like they don't spend as much time on those other games as they do the first one.
Hmm.
But they just get like better
Yeah.
at speedrunning in general, so they progress way faster on that second game than they did the first one, for instance. And
That's definitely true. Because once you learn your first game, you understand, how to practice, how to learn some tricks. Maybe
mhm,
don't go for, the hardest strats to begin with. I definitely learned that the hard way with Super Mario Odyssey. I was like, oh, I can do this really hard jump that saves 2 seconds. Why not?
mhm.
But you learn like, hey, do a run first, and then if you get good enough, then of course you can add the run or that trick. Sorry.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. So then,
but
so then,
yeah.
what made you want to run Mario Hour Challenge then? Because Odyssey's not
Um,
even in the challenge, right? So,
Yeah, it's completely different. I knew I definitely wanted to switch to like a 2D game because I always was having my eye on like Super Mario Brothers 1. I was like, whoa, it's a cool game, maybe get a sub 5. I tried that for a bit. I don't think I ever actually streamed any attempts. I just did some stuff offline because
mhm,
I was just curious, maybe, dip my toes in that. And it's so different switching from an hour-long game to a 5-minute game, and I really didn't like how in a 5-minute game, um, if you make one mistake, the run's basically entirely dead, and I'm sure that's why a lot of people love the game because it's so short, but there are so many tricks in that one game.
mhm,
But for me, at least, that wasn't for me. So again, my brother told me about the Super Mario Hour challenge and how it was 6 games, and I was like, "Whoa, that's cool." Um, get to try 6 games. If I really like one of the games, I can, maybe play that game more
mhm.
after I'm done with the challenge. So I thought it was really perfect. I decided to give it a shot.
Yeah, that's super cool. I also agree. I like can't run categories that short because it just drives me
Hmm.
insane. Like I don't know. I just feel like I'll never have that consistency to be able to like perform absolutely perfectly for like 5 minutes straight. Like there's always something that messes up, and like I much prefer like longer categories. Yeah, especially like multi-game stuff. I love multi-game speedruns. I think they're like super cool. Like I watch my homie Sushi do like the orange box speedrun and stuff
Yeah,
like
I
that.
love
Or
those speedruns as
yeah,
well. Those are great.
it's so cool. Like I love that idea of like doing like a whole series or something, and it's really rad. So you learned SMB1, right? And then you
Yeah.
decided that you were gonna learn the rest of the games for the Mario Hour Challenge. Did you learn like just the categories that you do for the Mario Hour Challenge, or like which games did you learn first, and how'd
I
that go?
think I started with I think SMB2U as like my main game that I started speedrunning like on my channel, live streaming attempts and whatnot. And then I just moved on. Like it was pretty arbitrary. I was just kind of like, huh, I want to try some SMW today. I might as well try some of that. Oh, today I'm gonna try some Super Mario 64 runs. I'll just try that. And I think that was pretty bad, honestly. I think what I should have done is played each game like casually first, maybe understood the physics behind it instead of just jumping right in. Because I think literally like my first day of playing SMB2U was literally the day I started speedrunning it, which isn't very good because
Yeah.
I was really rusty with the physics and it wasn't very good. I wasn't making like any progress at
Mhm.
all.
I feel like that's a lot. That's something that like a lot of people don't understand when they like try to pick a game to speedrun. They'll be like, "Man, this game's like a really cool speedrun. Like, I just want to pick it up," and then they don't actually like spend the time to like get familiar and comfortable with it, even like casually. And so
Hmm.
what I find ends up happening is like they might end up eventually getting like good at like the tricks or something, but it takes them a lot longer to build that familiarity because they don't have like that natural understanding of like how the game feels to play and like what you're supposed to be doing. Especially when it
Yeah,
comes to like backup strats, those like super lost. Like if they don't make the trick that they practice, then they're like don't even know where they are. They just like get lost and stuff, you know.
hmm I think that's especially apparent for 3D games. Like for Super Mario Odyssey, I'm just going to go back to that. I played the game casually first, and basically played like 1.5 casual playthroughs. So I knew a lot of the like little ins and outs of all the kingdoms. So I definitely knew, oh, if I mess up this jump, I can just use this backup strat to keep the run going.
Hmm.
But with some like in Super Mario 64, I literally cannot name like 5 levels. I The only information I know about that game is how to do 1 star, how to do 0 star, and that's literally it. So which is definitely like, it's okay in this case scenario, I feel like, but for a lot of games, you really should, understand how the physics work, how the game works. Definitely play the game casually before you just jump right in and speedrun it, for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, that's pretty cool. I mean, so you picked up SMB one, and then you just like kind of messed around with the other ones. How long was it before you were doing like, all right, today I'm just gonna sit down and do the whole run, like every game in a row, you know?
It's so I started learning the games in July of 2019. I think I did my first run mid-October of 2019. So it took me about 6 months to learn all the games. So about a month per game. Um, I really should have taken longer though, because I really wasn't ready to do runs. But I was just kind of like, I've been doing so many practice runs of each of the games. I might as well just try a run.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I feel like there's only so much you can practice before it's like, okay, I have to do a run, and then that run will tell me like what I need to improve on, right?
Hmm. That definitely
Because
helped. Like the first run after that, I was like, okay, I need to work on these tricks, these backups, knowing what to do when. Definitely, that first run helped a lot with understanding that stuff.
yeah, for sure. And you're supposed to do all the runs on actual hardware too. Is do you do that or was that like a
So
problem or what?
the creator of the challenge, Darbian, a lot of you might know him from SMB1 speedruns. He created the challenge in mid 2015. I think on July 10th, he posted like an announcement about what the challenge is, and in that announcement, it says actual or real hardware is required. So actually, you must play all the games on the actual hardware. Um, but then the challenge was posted on speedrun.com after a few runners tried the challenge. And in that rule set, they changed. The only thing that they changed was that emulators are allowed, just so that more runners could try their hand at the challenge. Because one of the games, SMB2J, The Lost Levels, that game was never really released in the United States. So in order to play that game, you need a Japanese console, which isn't very common here in the US.
Yeah.
And well, anywhere really. So to buy one, it's fairly expensive, especially if you're like, huh, I might just want to try the challenge. Maybe might not go through with it, but I just want to, try it.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
definitely,
That makes it a pretty
like,
high barrier for entry, definitely, if you have to buy a Japanese console for it. So it's
yeah,
cool that
definitely.
they allow emulator.
Yeah, I think a lot of runners now actually use not emulators. Some do, but me and a few other runners use something called an EverDrive, which is it's still you play on the actual console. I have it actually right here. Um, it's a cartridge, so it looks like this. So you can put that into a Famicom, which is what I have, and it emulates the game on the hardware. So it's technically not an emulator, but it's also not official hardware, but it is still playing on the actual hardware.
Oh, that's pretty cool then. Awesome. So then, was that the only one that you play like on like an emulator? Then do you play the rest on actual hardware, or what do
So I
you
play
do?
all the games on the NES or on the Famicom. I play it on that. So I play SMB1, SMB2J, which you would usually need an extra console for, SMB2U, and SMB3. I all play on that. And then the next console, the Super Nintendo, I play Super Mario World on that. And then obviously the N64, I play Super Mario 64 on that. So
Awesome.
it's a bit all over the place, but it
Yeah,
works.
I mean, it seems like it's one of the weird aspects of the challenge that might be harder than you might think. Because I
Hmm.
mean, like you have a bunch of different consoles just to try it, so it becomes a little
Yeah,
bit much, I'd imagine.
it's definitely tough as well. To something really small, but it's hard to switch the consoles like quickly and also get them to like record. Because I had my first setup that I had with this, I had to unplug something and plug something in to like switch the consoles, and it would appear on my TV, but my capture card would never really work, and it would just crash, which
Yeah,
was really really weird. Um, so I had to get a new setup for that because sometimes if I was on a really good pace, switch to the last game, looked over, and I was like, "Uh oh,"
you're not
it's not.
capturing. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's definitely tough to do that. I had to get a video and audio switcher, so I just push a button now and it works. It's really really nice.
that, that's super
It was
dope.
definitely an investment though.
Yeah, that's cool though. So the goal of the challenge is to get under 1 hour. How
Yes.
hard would you say that is? Because like you've PB'd since then, right? And gotten it
Yeah.
below
So
that.
as of right now, I've completed the Super Mario Hour challenge. I've gotten under an hour 53 times. So you might be like, "Whoa, that's really easy," you know? But it's because I've been doing it for a really really long time now, and I've gotten very consistent at the games. And a few months ago, I think in November, I did a charity event for GSA where I showcased the Mario Hour run, and my goal was to get a sub hour, and I actually did get a sub hour. I was very very excited. I think I got a 59:30 something, and it was really cool to do that because it showed just how much I've grown from getting sub hour the first time to being able to get it in a no reset run, which is really cool.
Yeah,
But
that's
like
really awesome.
sorry, but like to start the challenge and complete it, it's definitely tough. It's definitely going to take a while. I know a lot of runners who like want to try it, but it's tough because you can't really just sit down for a 3-day weekend and complete the challenge. It's going to take a lot of dedication and many months. But if you want a long term goal, it's definitely really fun to try.
Yeah, that seems super cool, and I like that because there's some leeway in the games. Like you don't necessarily have to be like super good at all of them. I imagine like if you're like
Yeah.
really good at SM64, you could probably save quite a bit of time, and then that'll give you more leeway in some of the 2D games and stuff. Out of the 2D games, which ones do you think is the hardest to get like a good time in?
That's a tough question. Just because the fact that I would personally say the Lost Levels is the hardest game because that game was never released in the United States just because of the fact that it was really hard. So if it's hard to play casually, it's very hard to speedrun. However, despite that, you can become really good at that game, right? If you put in the time, you put in the practice, you can become good at that game. However, with another game in the challenge, Super Mario Brothers 3, there is an RNG factor. So in that game, the very it, yeah, in the game there are 5 tiles that Mario has to walk over, and 3 of those tiles have a 50% chance each of pulling you into a bonus stage that you are forced to complete. So if you get 0 hands, which is really really good luck, that's a 12.5% chance. But you can also get a 12.5% chance of you getting all 3 hands, and if that happens, you lose about a minute and a half. So I would say that Lost Levels is the hardest game, but SMB3 is the most rage-inducing game,
Yeah.
because I've had so many, runs 45 seconds ahead, a minute ahead, get 3 hands, and then I'm behind by 30 seconds, So it's so frustrating.
Yeah, and especially because like if there is RNG elements in a run, you want it to be early. But
Yeah,
SMB3 is like the fourth game, right?
30 minutes in the game, yeah.
Yeah,
30 minutes in the challenge.
that's brutal. All right. So, anyways, the reason I was started talking to you is because this is video idea I have. we're talking about choking in speedrunning and
Yes, I do a lot.
perf-
I'm an expert at that.
oh, me too, don't worry. And like dealing with performance anxiety and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And the reason I got into contact with you is because one of my homies showed me this clip of I think it was like the first time you were like on really good pace to get sub 1 hour in the Marihour challenge, and then tragedy struck at the
Strategy.
final
Yep.
Bowser. Yeah,
Strategy
just want to like talk about what happened, like what was going on.
Sure. It's a bit hard to explain without the clip, but uh, trying to think what even how did okay, sorry, I completely forgot this mistake I made. Okay. So in the last game, Super Mario 64, there is, like I said earlier, there are BLJs and SBLJs, which are really, really difficult tricks to learn. Um, but in this run, I was 2.5 minutes ahead. I think about 2.5 minutes ahead, maybe. Um, and I got SBLJ and LBLJ, the two hardest tricks in the game. The tricks that can take you multiple minutes and kill so many runs. I got it like third or fourth try, I think, and I was so excited because I was on pace to complete the challenge. And then on the final Bowser fight, in the Bowser fight, you have to spin Bowser by his tail and release him to hit a bomb. And the Bowser throws are very, very tight. There's not really any frames to spare. And it's really, really hard to do casually, and it's very hard to do speedrunning, especially since it's at the very end of the game and the very end of the challenge. It is almost impossible to stay relaxed and hit all three Bowser throws on the first try. So on this really good run, I was multiple minutes ahead. I missed so many Bowser throws. I could have so easily gotten, I think, a 58-minute time on that run, I believe, but I just missed 3, 4 Bowser throws. Sorry if I'm getting some of these facts incorrectly.
You're
This was
good.
a while ago, but yeah, I couldn't handle the pressure. I was so nervous going into it. I was like, oh my god, I've been trying to get sub hour for almost a year now, and I might actually be able to get it, but was way too nervous, and I finished with a time of 1 hour and 9 seconds when I should have gotten under an hour by so much time. Yeah, it was very
Yeah,
frustrating.
I know that feel, dude. That's brutal. I think it's especially because SM64 probably is the hardest game in the run, and then you did hit those tricks really well. I
Exactly.
I think that as well as you were so far ahead. Like I've definitely been on paces before where I'm like, oh man, like this run is really good. You
Yeah, like
know?
there's no way I can kill this run.
Yeah, exactly. And then you jinx it, and so you do.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
And I think it's just it's all about that like expectation, right? Like because you kind of like scare yourself. You're like, man, this run is like so good. Like
Mhm.
I can't mess anything up. And then because you think that, then you mess everything up, right? And especially with those
Definitely.
Bowser throws at the end, they're kind of jank, and you got to hit
Yeah.
them like really solid. And then
Mhm.
once one mistake happens, then it's just
Oh, it's
down.
just spirals down,
Yeah,
especially.
dude.
Definitely. I think, I've gotten a lot better since then. During the time where I choked and I got a 1 hour and 9 second time, I rarely ever hit all 3 Bowser throws, but now on good pace runs, I've been doing a lot better. I've practiced that a lot. I think after that mistake, I was like, "You know what? I'm never going to choke another run this much, to the final Bowser fight." So I practiced it a lot, and I'm now a lot better at it. My most recent PB, by the way, 55 minutes and 58 seconds. I got all 3 Bowser throws really, really well. So I've definitely grown a lot since that
Nice.
mistake, and I hopefully will never miss another Bowser throw, which isn't true. I'm definitely gonna miss some more, but
Yeah, for sure. I
you
mean, you're human.
know.
You miss some,
Yeah.
but yeah. And so was that like had you not at the time? Did you like not have that much practice of the Bowser throws, or like was it something that you found particularly difficult, or was it just the heat of the moment made you choke?
I think it was definitely the heat of the moment, and also a big reason why I think speedrunners choke, and a big reason why speedrunners can't finish a really good paced run, is because they look over at the time. They're like, "Oh no, I'm 45 minutes into a run. I have to finish this run. If I want to get on another good paced run, it's going to take me another 45 minutes." And I think that's why a lot of runners choke, is because they don't want to have to grind another really good run to get back to the point where they are. They want to finish off this run, get a PB, and be satisfied with this run that, they hit all the tricks first try,
Hmm.
instead of failing a really difficult trick and having to restart from the very beginning to work their way back to a really good paced run. Because the chances are the next run that you try isn't going to be the run, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh no, I have to finish this run or it's going to take me another hour, week, month to get back to where I am right now.
Yeah, I've definitely
So
had runs where I'm like, oh man, like if I finish this strong, like this is dead. You know, like I don't have to run this again. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like that
Mhm.
the run is like that good. And then when that thought creeps into my head, it's like it's over. Like the very next mistake, I'm gonna like crumble, and then I'm just gonna keep making mistakes because you put too much pressure on yourself. You know, like
Yeah.
you perform best when like you're just like calm, relaxed, like just enjoying yourself, just going through the motions. If you put too much pressure on yourself, it's like when you have like a big test or something, or like you're gonna be in a competition. You know, it's like that added pressure. You just like makes you choke. You know, but if you're just like chilling, just having a good time or whatever, then you play way better.
Yeah, that's definitely true. There's been tricks that I failed, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, whatever. I'll practice this for like 5 minutes." I go back, I get the trick 10 times in a row. So I'm like, "Okay, I'm good with this trick now. Let's do another run." I do another run. I get back to the same point. I failed the trick. So it's definitely more like if you're really calm and relaxed, and there's no penalty for messing up, you're more likely to succeed because it's just casually doing it. Like I said, if you mess up, it's whatever. But if you're in a run, you basically just wasted the past 30 minutes of your life trying to get a run going, you know?
Yeah, it's the
So it's
consequences of the actions, right? If there's no
definitely,
consequences, then there's no pressure. You just do it, you know.
yeah.
And
If you could
and
just, if you failed the trick and you could redo it right away, you know,
mhm.
you wouldn't really be nervous because it's, like you said, there's no consequence for messing up.
Yeah, I feel like, and that's like one of the tricks I see like a lot of people do when they're like trying to resist choking, getting anxious and nervous with their runs is like they just gotta realize like, okay, at the end of the day, like it's not a big deal. Like you have to give yourself permission to fail, right? Like if I choke this run, it'll be fine. Like I'll just get another run later, you know. And
Hmm.
then when they do that, they don't choke the run. So, it's like very very powerful tool. You just don't want to put that extra pressure on yourself.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. It's easy to say, oh, you can just, not be stressed, just get into that mentality. But it's
Yeah,
definitely really hard. I think there are a lot of runners who have mastered that active, being calm, being relaxed during the run. But especially for new runners or veteran runners, it's definitely hard to, see your run 30 seconds ahead, your best ever pace and be like, yeah, whatever, you know?
yeah. It's weird because it does seem kind of jaded, huh? Like you don't care. Like you're on really good pace, you know. But if you do
Hmm.
care too much, then it's gonna fall apart most likely, And you just gotta just take it with stride and just keep going because even if it is like your best pace ever, like you can always improve. Like
Definitely.
when you
Yeah.
do get like that insane PB, like you're probably still gonna be like, there was like 10 seconds on this one split.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
not
I think
perfect.
I don't think there's very, very few runners who finish a speed run and they're like, "Yeah, that was a really good run. I'm not gonna be able to beat this like ever again." You know, there's always somewhere some room for improvement. I don't remember exactly what run it was, but I remember I finished a PB by like 2 or 3 minutes and I was like, "This run sucks." Um, I can improve so much, and I think that's like a good and bad mentality to have at the same time because it's good because you want to improve, you want to push your time farther down, become the best you can be. But at the same time, it can definitely become like not good because you're trying to shave off like a half a second in like an hour-long category, and you're just like beating yourself up because you can't do it. You've been doing it for months, you know?
Yeah, you don't want to be toxic towards yourself with it, but like there is always room for improvement, which is yeah, like I said, it's like both a blessing and a curse. Like you could just do it forever, and
Yeah.
it's cool and like you can always improve, but like at some point you gotta like you know accept like okay that run was good, like I should be happy with that, and like either move
Mhm.
on or like figure out something else. Is there anything like you do in particular to if you have getting nerves or like you're on a really good pace to try to subvert the choking that it may be imminent?
I would say not really. I try to go in with the mindset that if I'm gonna fail, I want to go out in style. Um, which I don't know exactly what that means, but yeah, I don't really do anything in particular to try to like calm myself because I feel like if I try to calm myself, I'm just gonna become more stressed during the run. Um, I definitely just try to become like relaxed, and
Hmm.
something I try doing is reading chat because I feel like chat is definitely very distracting during a run, but at the same time it like keeps your mind off of the run. Um, that's why no matter what pace I'm on, I'll always keep chat open until the last game of the challenge, and then I'll close chat and focus on the game. But before that, I try to like kind of like distract yourself with something else,
Hmm.
but not like if you distract yourself too much, of course that's going to be really bad. You're
Yeah, then
going
you're
to
gonna
mess
not be
up.
able to play well. But yeah,
Hmm.
I totally agree. I do the same thing. All the time. I notice like just having a good conversation with chat, like letting your muscle memory take over and just like playing the game. And then I'll be like, glance at my splits. I'm like, oh, this is actually a really good run. And that's when it falls apart because like I I do a little research on it. It's basically like you enter like a flow state. Like you just like get in the mood, get in the moment, and then you're not really thinking about what you're doing. You just let your muscle memory take over. Especially when you're
Hmm.
like talking with your chat or something, or doing some sort of side activity like listening to music, where you can divert your attention to that, and then you let your it's called automaticity. It's where you like over practice, so that you don't have to actually pay attention to what you're doing. Your body will just kind of do it. It's the same thing with like if you're like driving a car or like any sort of automatic action like
Hmm.
breathing, where you don't have to think about it and you just kind of do it. And with those actions, you actually perform better when you're not paying attention to them. So like I'll notice myself like sometimes I get frustrated that I'm not playing as well as I'd like, and so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna focus super hard on how I play, and then I play worse
Hmm.
because like it's built-in muscle memory. You can't just like over focus on it, otherwise you're gonna crumble. At least that's what I've
Hmm.
experienced.
I've definitely felt that as well. Sometimes I'll be so like out of it, like I won't even be really paying attention to all what I'm doing, and I'm like, "Oh, we just saved like 10 seconds." I don't know how I did that, but that's cool, I guess. And sometimes runs will like merge together. I'm like, "Oh, did I say this at the beginning of the run, or was that last run or something?"
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it's definitely like autopilot. Going on autopilot is definitely a really good thing sometimes because you just let your muscle memory take over, like you said, and it definitely helps a lot. I feel like that also ties into the fact that like if you listen to music while running or something, you're like statistically more likely to run for longer, kind of because your brain is like preoccupied towards something else. You're not completely focusing on just running or just doing your homework. You're doing something on the side as well that kind of preoccupies some of your brain.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really cool because it's just like super useful. And what I usually do is, if I'm like, just like talking to chat, having a conversation, or like listening to music while doing runs, what I usually do is like I get like 75% of the way through the run, and if it's still good and I notice it, then it's like okay, now it's focus time. Like I just need to close this
Yeah.
out, and then after that, then I'm good to go. But I find especially in like the early sections of games or like runs that you just do it so much, it just becomes like totally automatic, and you just like can
Hmm.
kind of zone out. It's more so like the later sections, or maybe like super big choke points where there's like a really hard trick. Those are like the sections where no matter how much you practice it, it probably won't become fully automatic. You probably have to like okay, like just break it down and just focus really hard on this, and then you can go back and being able to like be kind of zoned out and then come back into focus, but then be able to zone out again. I feel like is like really hard. Like that's like
Yeah, I think that's almost impossible to do because once you focus like on the run and you're like, okay, I'm going to focus on this trick, then you look over your splits, you're like, oh wow, I'm 40 seconds ahead. This run is actually serious. So it's really hard to go from that to be really chill and laid back. I
yeah,
think if someone can do that though, they like that person will be able to finish so many more runs and play with so much more consistency than a lot of other runners because I'm pretty sure like 99.9% of runners just struggle with that, looking at the splits and being, oh shoot, this is a really good run, and then
yeah,
failing
definitely.
because of that.
Yeah, definitely. And I noticed that especially too. It happens with like a lot of other things too. Like I skateboard, and so like that is just like speedrunning to me, where it's all mental. Like the actual physical execution of most things is not that difficult, especially in speedrunning. Like you just practice it a little bit, and then you got it. But it's all like just being in the right headspace and just being able to like execute it and then not have it affect your mental and stuff. Like yesterday, I was trying a trick, and I couldn't do it. I just kept like I would perform it, I'd execute it, But
Mhm.
then I would always bail. Like I would like not try to land it because I get scared.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is I was like, okay, well I know myself. If I focus on something else, I'll do it. So what I did is I did another trick right before that trick because I was just like dropping in and then trying the trick. So I'm like, okay, if
Mhm.
I do this other one right beforehand, I'll commit to the other one because I'm focusing on the first one. And I did it first try. Like as soon as I did the first trick, I landed the second one. And the thing is kind of true for speedrunning, where like if you just like focus on one thing and don't put so much pressure on like the main event, like if there's like a final boss that you have to beat, um, if you're just like, oh man, you're coming up with anticipation, like oh man, like I need to hit this trick, you know, um, you're gonna probably choke. But if you focus on like just something small right beforehand, then you get like a little bit like, okay, I did that. So now I'm gonna be able to do this next thing. And you get a little confidence boost because like you set a mini goal and then you're able to hit that larger goal right after. And it doesn't seem as daunting a task because you just did something. Right.
Mhm. That's definitely true. Like focusing on something else, and then instead of focusing on the big thing, focusing on smaller things along the way. I think a lot of times that I've done runs, I'm on a really good pace in like Super Mario World, with Super Mario 64 coming up, and I'm like, oh no, it's Super Mario 64. I better not mess up, all those tricks. And because I'm thinking about that, I feel like in a way I play better and worse at the same time in Super Mario World, because at the same time it's like, oh, I'm not really focusing completely on this, and I'm more worried about something else that I might not even get to in this run. But at the same time, I'm also focusing on on something else, right?
Hmm.
So I'm not focusing on exactly what I'm doing. My mind is a bit preoccupied with what's later to come. And I think at times that's helped and also killed a lot of my runs.
Yeah, for sure. It's because it's all about that diverting your attention, right? You wanna be able to get it out of the way, but also
Yeah.
be able to bring it back in when the time is right. Have you ever tried to do a run where you just 100% focus on the run, like nothing on the outside? You're just
Yeah.
like, I'm just gonna focus on the execution. What was your experience with that? Because every time I try to do that, I just like super overanalyze and I do like everything incorrectly.
Yeah, it's weird. I've tried that in the past. Sometimes it goes horribly wrong and I can't even get past like the first level. But then there was this one time a few streams ago, actually, fairly recently, that I was like, this run, I'm gonna PB this run, right? And then I focused really, really hard. I nailed all the tricks, and I actually PB'd. I was so surprised because I was like, what the heck? This has never happened before.
You just
But
manifested it. You're like, I'm going to
yeah.
PB.
Um, but yeah, I think rarely ever am I like really focusing and it actually becomes the run. Um, I think it's just like the human element as well, because even if you're really focused, you're trying your best to nail a trick or something, your finger slips or something happens and you fail a trick or fail a jump or something like that.
Hmm.
It's
So
never.
we were talking a lot about like when you're just like streaming, doing your own runs and stuff. But you said that you did a run for GSA, right? And
Yes.
when you're doing a bigger event run, like I've done some GDQ runs, and with
Hmm.
those, it's like, okay, yeah, it's easy to be like, oh, it doesn't matter when you're doing resets. But like if you're trying to
Yeah.
like show off for like an event or something, obviously like the stakes are a lot higher, and um, that might make it a lot easier for some people to choke. Like, is there anything that you would suggest with that?
I don't know. It's tough. By the way, I think I saw your GDQ run, which a few weeks ago, which is very cool.
Well, thank you.
um, But anyways, I think like if you're doing that type of run, I knew for me, I had the choice of commentating alone or commentating or having someone else commentate with me. And I was like, if I have to commentate while doing like SBLJ and the hardest tricks, I knew I wouldn't be able to do it. So in order to like not be as stressed during the run, I had someone else commentate for me or alongside with me. I think he's actually watching right now, Super Mega Dev. If he's in the chat, shout out to him for helping me with that. Also, like I said earlier, he is another Super Mario Hour speedrunner as well for that. But it definitely is nerve wracking. Something else, I think I had a another level of like pressure while doing this run because the Mario Hour challenge isn't really something that many people have heard of. I'm sure many people have heard of a lot of the games that are run at these events, but very few people have heard of the Super Mario Hour challenge. So I feel like if I failed all the tricks and I got a 1 hour and 20-minute time, I was gonna going to be an embarrassment for the challenge. But if
Hmm.
I showcased the run really well and got maybe some people interested, then I was kind of like, showcasing the run to a lot of people who might be interested in it, but never really knew what it was. Um,
Yeah, for
which was
sure.
definitely very stressful.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. I felt the same way. I just did my Left 4 Dead 2 run at GDQ, and it was the first time it's ever been shown solo. So I'm just
Hmm.
like, especially that game
Yeah.
because it's very volatile. Like, there's a lot of RNG, so like things could go really bad, you know.
Yeah.
So it put a lot of pressure on me. I was just like, okay, well, I really want to make sure I do this right. And like you said, I had like amazing commentary, so I was like, okay, no matter what happens, they'll carry me. Like it'll be fine. So I could just
Yeah.
focus on
Hmm.
playing, you know. And so my strategy was I just practiced a ton, like just an
That's what
insane
I did as
amount.
well.
It's
Yeah.
just like an insane amount, just like a bunch of no resets, just so that I could get like, okay, you know, I think it's more about being confident, right? I think it's
Hmm.
like you can understand the pressure of the situation, but as long as you're like, I will do fine, then you're not going to get in your own way. You know, you're just going to focus on the moment to moment, get your stuff done. You know, you're going to have more fun. I feel like if you're having fun with it, it's a lot easier to like stay in that good headspace because you want to like tilt or something, right? Um, and I think it's just like, yeah, it's more about that mindset. Like you need to be confident. You need to like know going in, like, okay, like it's gonna be fine. I'm gonna nail it, you know. And if you do that, then it's like way easier. Because my first GDQ run, I was like pretty nervous because I was showing off Devil May Cry 3, and my couch was cool, but like no one on the couch ran the game, you know. So I was like kind of
That's tough.
tasked.
Yeah.
It's kind of tasked with like, okay, I have to like do most of the commentary, and this game's hard, you know. So with that, and I got no practice because I was on the first day and I like just
Oh,
barely
that's
got I barely got my game downloaded, so I literally didn't get to practice. I like put it on the stream PC and then like I did my run.
mm,
um and yeah, like I got like pretty flustered and like not really ready, and I wasn't that confident until I got to like, you know, like 10 minutes in. And then I was like, okay, like I'm fine. And then like from the rest I performed well, but I think it's all about like just got to have that confidence, got to feel like you're good to go, and then you'll do fine.
yeah. Like you said, the first 10 minutes as well is definitely the most nerve-wracking part because you look over the stream, you're like, oh shoot, there's 85,000 people watching. This is kind of serious, you know.
Yeah.
But once you kind of get over the fact that, oh, I'm comfortable, I'm playing a game I've played before, and once you get over the fear factor, kind of in a way, you definitely become a lot less stressed and more relaxed. And you get to talk about a game that you really enjoy playing. So in a way, it is definitely really fun. Get to explain the tricks, explain your history of the game, or in my case the challenge.
Mhm.
And once you kind of get past that factor, it definitely is really really and really fun.
Yeah, it's a great time. And if you don't choke, and you have a good time, then then you're hyped.
Yeah,
You're like, hell yeah.
definitely. When you nail the strats down. Also, like you said earlier, I would like practicing for these events. I did a bunch of no resets in practice. I actually did like a few practice commentating. So I ran the game, commentated with Super Mega Dev, and it's really funny actually. I did 2 runs practicing with him. My first run, I got a 1 hour and 5 minute time, and then the second time I got a 1 hour in like I think around 1 hour and five as well. But none of them were sub-hour, and I messed up the same trick in both runs like multiple times.
Hmm.
So I was like, "Uh oh, this isn't good." Going into
Yeah.
the actual event, I was really nervous because I really wanted to get a sub-hour, but after doing the practice runs, I was like, "Uh-oh, I don't really know how feasible it is." But then I think it's also, like, the heat of the moment, like, you're more, like, focused in a way, but also more relaxed when
Hmm.
there's, thousands of people watching, and in my run, I actually nailed that strat first try and ended off getting a sub-hour run. So, it's weird because you would think, "Oh, you're more nervous, more stressed in front of more people," but I think in a way, it kind of calms you down, relaxes you in a way.
Yeah, I
I
think
know that might sound crazy, but for
no,
me at least it did.
I get what you're saying. I think it has to do with the fact that like um the anticipation of something is often scarier than the actual event. Like
Definitely, yeah.
i- it's almost never going to go as wrong as you think it could, right? So
Yeah,
like
like,
when you're actually
my
in the
example, the
moment.
first day of school, you always think it's
Yeah.
gonna be really bad,
Yeah,
and it never is.
exactly. The first day of school, it's always fine, right? Like
Mhm.
it's more about just like your expectations, you know, like you're like, oh man, like this is like this big event, like I'm gonna be so nervous and stuff, like so much could go wrong. But then like when you're actually in the moment, I've almost never seen someone have like a crazy like breakdown, like they can't handle it or anything. It like never happens because
Hmm.
everyone's just like, oh, okay, we're here, like I'm doing the thing.
Yeah.
Like they may be super anxious, but they're able to like just take it moment by moment. And you don't have to think about the future because you're there. This is the event, and then often it's over before you know it.
Yeah,
Like
that's so true.
you're just like, oh, okay, like I guess I'll get off the stage. Like that was my run. Like that was an
Mhm.
hour, really? Like what? That's crazy. Because it just is like all this build up in time, and then you get to the one moment, and it just kind of happens. Because
Yeah.
it's think about it this way, it is just like any other moment, right? Like no matter what you're doing, like it is still just you're playing a video game, or like you're just spending some time. So I think people put way too much pressure on that stuff for themselves because in the actual moment, it's usually fine.
Yeah, I think for a lot of things, especially like GDQ and SGDQ and GSA runs, or if you're performing in front of anyone really, usually you spend a lot of time practicing, perfecting your speech or your run or whatever you're doing in front of the crowd, and then you get up, perform, and then it's over before you know it, like you said. And I think it's because you spend so much time preparing for this. You really, really want to do well because you put in all these hours to try to be the best you can be on stage. You really want to succeed, and then it's over before you know it. You spend 20 hours preparing a 2-minute speech, and then the 2-minute speech is over, and you're like, oh, it's over. I don't have to be stressed about this anymore.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, speaking about that preparation too, I find that the less experience you are with a game, the more likely you are to choke. Like it's really rare that you see someone who like has like 1,000 hours in a game just like choke horrendously, unless they're on like a dry spell. I would say like so when you're like new to the game, like you're not that familiar, and then when you get to like late game, maybe you don't have that much practice, and then like you're more likely to choke, especially because you're like, oh man, like this is the first time I've gotten to this part of the game on this pace. Whereas somebody who's more experienced, you're like, okay, well I've been here a million times, like this is just another run. You don't have that the added pressure, except for I've done this before for sure, is you're like, man, it's been like a month since I PB'd, like I really
mhm.
need to get this PB, and then then you have that added pressure, and then you get in the late game, you're like, dude, I'm finally gonna PB, and then you get anxious, and then you choke, and then certainly don't PB
Yeah.
anymore.
I think when I first started the challenge, I feel like I didn't get very. I definitely choked a lot, but I didn't get nervous because it was my first run, second run. My second run, I PB'd by like 9 minutes, I think, maybe 12 minutes, and it's like that run was really, really bad, but it was still better than my previous run. So you're not nervous because you're like, you're still kind of trying it out. But then once you start to get a bit better and you see you're 5 seconds ahead, all of a sudden that 5 seconds is like, oh my god, I'm ahead. When before I was 12 minutes ahead, and it was like, oh, I guess that's cool. Um, Something else, I think I've definitely said this on my streams before, is that as you get better, with a game or a challenge or whatever, your expectations kind of grow. Um, for the first time you do a run, you don't expect to nail every trick, play the best you ever have. But once you play the game for a year or a year and a half, poured hundreds of hours into the game, the trick, the category, whatever, once that happens, you kind of expect that you're gonna nail each trick first try, even though that probably isn't gonna be the case. You still expect that, oh, I put in all these hours, I should be able to nail all these tricks.
Yeah, for
And I
sure. I
think that
find myself struggling with that a lot because like I've run a lot of games now. I'm like 17 games or something, and I'm like pretty good at a lot of them. So sometimes when I pick up a new game, I kind of have this expectation like, okay, well, I'll just practice it and then I'll like have it. And it's
mhm,
not the case most of the time. Like,
yeah,
you gotta, no matter how much you've done before or like how much you practice, like you're gonna make mistakes and you gotta like learn to, improve off of them and stuff. But it's kind of like this thing. It's called the hedonic treadmill. It's basically like humans are always like at a base level of like their happiness with something, and
mhm,
like let's say like you start performing really really well at something for a long period of time, like let's say you get really good at a Mario game, and so you just keep performing well. Eventually you kind of come back to that standard where you're like, okay, like I'm like at base level happiness with this,
Yeah, I
but
see what you're saying.
you're way better than you were when you started.
Mhm.
So that progress is like way harder. Like, because, yeah, like
Yeah.
that first run, you saved 9 minutes, right? But now you're hyped on a 5 second time save. But
Yeah.
yeah, for
I
sure.
think I think it's because you don't see yourself improve. Like, obviously, you do improve, but you don't really see yourself improve. A year and a half ago, I had a 1 hour and 12-minute time as my PB. Now I have a 58-minute, 55-minute and 58-second time as my PB. But you don't really see that growth, you know? It's really subtle, so you don't really realize it until you're like, "Oh, wow, a year and a half ago, I improved a lot." I think that's also true with sports. I play sports, and, like, if you practice 3, 4 times a week, you don't really see yourself grow at all, and then you don't feel like you're really progressing when, no, you lose a match, you miss the game-winning shot in basketball or something like that. But if you reflect and you see a video of yourself playing from a year ago or a week ago, you can definitely see your improvement. Something I did a few weeks, actually maybe like a few weeks ago on stream, I rewatched my first ever Mario Hour run, my 1 hour and 22-minute time, and I was like, oh no, because it's so weird to see me fail like such easy tricks, and like continue after I get multiple game overs in games. Like when nowadays, if I were to die once, I would reset. So it's definitely interesting to see how far you've come from when you started, but you don't really see your progression until you really reflect on how far you've come.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's like super important. Some of my friends have been doing that pretty recently too. Like they go back and like this is like my first submitted run of this game, and then it's
Yeah.
like it's a nice little confidence booster because you're like, yeah, like that was kind of embarrassing. Like I wasn't very good, but look at how much better I am now. And I feel like that's kind of an underappreciated thing about speedrunning is people tend to focus on like world record culture and like this is like the craziest times or whatever, but they don't really look at like, oh man, like look at how much people have improved. Like just like with a little bit of effort and some time, like you get so much better. And that's like my favorite part about speedrunning is that you just like this is a self betterment thing. You just get more and more invested in it. You practice more and more, and then you just like it's very tangible. That's what I like about speedrunning as well. It's like there's an objective measurement of improvement, right? Like
Mhm.
there is the time. Like no matter how bad you feel about how you're playing today or whatever, you could look at your PB and be like, okay, like it's like 20 minutes better than when I started. Like I am getting better. There's no like subjectivity to it. It's not like art or something where, you could be like, this is my art piece and, some people are going to like it, some people aren't or whatever. Like people have to look at the time and be like, okay, like they have objectively, they've improved, like they're getting better. And I really like that about it.
Yeah, I definitely like speedrunning as well, just because the fact that you're racing against yourself. You're trying to improve, yourself versus like a sport. I enjoy sports, of course, but in a sport, it's kind of like, oh, if you play a really good player, then it's like, oh, you suck.
Yeah.
Versus if you play a really bad player, then oh, you're really good. But if you're versing yourself, it's kind of like, you know, there's no acts of like randomness versus like who you verse in a sport versus um if you're speedrunning, it's completely against yourself. So if you want to get better, you just practice a bit more and you can see the, like you said, tangible growth, tangible improvement versus something else where it can be arbitrary, your improvement, like with art or with sports.
Yeah, for sure. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about when it comes to Mario Hour or choking or performance anxiety or anything like that?
Not that I can think of at the moment. I might have something in a few days or something that I might write to you about, but as
Word.
of now, I think that's about it for
Awesome
me.
then. Cool. Well then, thanks so much for talking with me. It was fun. Where
Yeah.
can people find you? Uh,
So I am on Twitch. My username is PixelPerfectRuns, and I am continuing to do Mario Hour runs. Right now, I'm doing some individual games of my own, but still doing some speed runs over there. I also have a YouTube channel. I don't really post that often though. Again, Pixel Perfect Runs is my YouTube channel. Something actually I want to say is that right now I'm currently working on a Super Mario Hour history video. So it's going to be like about an hour long, and it's going to really dive into the history of the challenge, when it was first created, why only a few runners have even attempted it. I think on the leaderboard there's only about 13, 14 runs, and why it's just really hard to beat, and my history, my story behind it, as well as all the other runners who have successfully gotten sub-hour time, and also why you should pick up the challenge because it's definitely really, really fun.
Sounds awesome, man. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, thank you.
Heck yeah,
Look
dude.
at you.
Well,
You're
I
completely
appreciate you
out of
hanging out with me.
interest in stealing
It was a
my
Yeah,
good
thanks for
time.
having me on. It's
Yeah.
fun to talk about Marihour challenge and why people choke and mess up runs.
Yeah, very fun, man. All right, well, I'll see you later, man. Thanks
All
so
right.
much.
Well, thanks for having me. Bye, everyone.
Peace.
See ya.